Is water our enemy?
Look at Baba Adesina's compound. Look at the other compound. Look at Oshilagun compound. This is Oshilagun compound. This is becoming unbearable.
No, water is not our enemy. However, it becomes our enemy when we fail to respect and manage it properly. The wish of many Lagosians is for the rain not to fall at all because of the adverse effects of flooding. Whenever it rains in Lagos, life becomes miserable for some people as homes and streets get flooded. This issue arises because you and I have distorted the natural flow of water and haven't effectively managed rainwater runoff. In an interview conducted by Cable Plus Property Media with Engineer Nuruddin Shodeinde, when he was the permanent secretary in the Ministry of the Environment, Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources, he explained what flooding is, cause of flooding, its impact, and how it can be managed since it cannot be entirely prevented. Join us as we delve into his expert insights on living harmoniously with rainwater.
Rainfall is that body of water, that volume of water falling from the sky onto the ground. That is rain. When it touches the ground and is flowing, runoff. So storm, rainstorm, rainwater, storm, runoff. So anything water that flows on the ground after a rainfall event, we refer to as storm runoff in this context.
Okay.
So I won't say flooding, because not all storm runoff leads to flooding. Flooding is actually when you have water stagnated, not going anywhere. Or storm runoff that is now so huge that is now disturbing movement or livelihood. That is some form of flooding. But when it is flowing without disturbing anybody, we just say storm runoff. When that starts disturbing, it becomes flooding. So if I said flooding, I'll be misleading the audience. So to me, it is storm runoff. They're all storm runoff. So that's why I use the word storm runoff. Because it's running off. We don't want it to stay.
Not stagnant.
You want it to run off as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned flooding because my next question was going to be about that.
Okay.
And you'd agree with me that people, viewers and listeners relate more with the word flooding in whatever context.
Exactly,
they
yeah.
understand flooding. So let's talk about flooding, especially in Lagos State. In its entirety, what is flooding? What causes it? And then if we can bring the causes to the domestic causes of flooding in Lagos, and how well can it be prevented? It seems that the consequences sometimes goes beyond even the immediate environment where it happened.
Well, that's a huge question, impregnated. But let me first start talking about flooding generally. I explained storm runoff. But before I explain flooding, let me paint a picture. I use a word too that you might miss. I said natural water cycle. But the real engineering word is natural hydrologic cycle. Hydro, water, logic, cycle. It's a cycle. Where water transforms from one state to the other, it's going in a cycle. Let me assume it starts with the surface water. When the sun is out, it evaporates water naturally into the sky. It becomes clouds, right? When the cloud is fully saturated of water, it now condenses. And you have rainfall. That's the cycle. It has gone up, evaporated, it's now coming down as rain. The rain will flow into the river, into the lakes, into the lagoons, into the canals to be stored. When the rain stops and the sun is out, another evaporation commences. It takes a long time for this process to happen. But natural water cycle is such that there is water on the surface, there's water on the ground. You know that. Right. But you can only evaporate that's on the surface. But when the water is coming down, the natural cycle God has created, natural, when natural is God divinely given, right? Is that you might not realize, but the biggest drainage infrastructure is the sand, the ground, the earth. That's the biggest storm water infrastructure. It's a sponge. When there's rain, a large percentage, more like half or more than half, ought to sink into the ground naturally, undisturbed, so that it will recharge the underground aquifer, the water in the ground. Another 40% thereabout naturally should stay on the foliage, on the green, the trees, the leaves of the trees, the grasses, all what have you, for it to be stored. Right? Now, only about 10% ought to go as runoff into the swamps, the lakes, and the rivers, and anywhere. And naturally, God has created pathways for this water in terms of low-lying areas. The water will flow from up down. So when the runoff is coming, it goes from the up elevation to a lower part for it to now go into the river. I mean, water finds its level. That's natural cycle. Where it comes down, half into the ground, another 40% on the leaves, on the green, while 10 flows. But now, causes of flooding. We have 3 types of flooding in Lagos. We have what we call the urban flooding, which is we call flash flooding. That Lagos is an urban center. So we have flash flooding, which oftentimes is man-made. It's not natural. Right? We have river flooding. Very easy to understand. River flooding along a river bank. So when there is rainfall and the river stage, when we say river stage, the height of the water in the river, that's a stage, goes high. God has naturally provided wetlands abutting the river to temporarily store this increase in the volume of the river. But if perchance you find yourself in such low-lying area, you will feel the impact of that river flooding. That is a natural situation. But it becomes a flooding event when people are now living in low-lying areas without adequate provision to live in such an area, to live with the water or live to naturally cohabit with natural habitat of that area. That's the second type. The third type is coastal flooding. I mean, coast, along the coast, where you have water coming from the ocean due to high sea waves or whatever, to come. So that are the 3 types of flooding that we can suffer in Lagos. But the 2 that we feel the most is the first, flash flooding, which is caused by us, and the river flooding equally caused by us. Because river flooding naturally should go on and off without us even knowing the river stage is increasing or decreasing. Because when there's rain, the river collects everything. When the rain stops, the river will go down again. Now let's talk about the flash flood. What I said is man-made. Take a man back to the natural cycle, what cycle I mentioned earlier, that the biggest infrastructure is the earth. What have we done to ourselves in Lagos? Look at your compound where you live. What is the compound like? Concrete. Huh? Yes. So you have sealed and distorted a natural process that God has created to give us succor, for us to have a good life. You and I, we've sealed everybody. Oh, well, I'm not guilty, but I know a lot of people are guilty. What are we all doing? We are increasing, and no, apart from the ground that we've sealed, where are the trees and the grasses that should store another 40%? Do you see trees in Lagos anymore as they used to be? Well, maybe just in Lagos. I grew up in Lagos. I was born in Lagos, and I can tell you, Lagos has changed tremendously in terms of the environment. So we are having near 100% runoff, which the channels are not naturally designed for. When we say you are creating a canal, these canals are not artificial. They are naturally existing channels to take the runoff. There's no way you can increase the capacity of a channel element for 10% runoff to take 100% runoff within a short time. Because Water flows based on velocity, and you get velocity where there's energy. The energy for water is height. If you pour water in my hand, it will flow down faster like this. If I reduce the gradient, it's going to take longer. So if I pour the same volume of water, this one will go faster, this one will go slower. So the water will just be sluggish on this one. So it will keep piling up, and the height will be rising. But this one, they won't meet each other. They just go pum, pum. So that's the problem. Look at a low-lying area. We have no energy to discharge. So we need the natural phenomenon more. You see, gone are those days where the mentality of hydraulic design for drainages is rapid collection, quick discharge, energy. That means you quickly collect into a channel and the thing will flow out. That's where you have energy. But when you're even low already, look at the lagoon. Look at the level of your land. How high are you to ensure and encourage that rapid discharge? We don't have such laxity or latitude to play with in Lagos. Now, all of us have sealed our compounds. We have directed all our rainfall volume onto the road within a short space of time during the rainfall. So when the rain is falling, the entire volume of water coming down is coming out into the public space at the same time. Naturally, only 10% should be coming out into the public space and sluggishly go into the canals and the rivers. But now you're bringing 100%. No engineering can solve that. So flooding can be prevented, can only be managed. That's what they call stormwater management, not flooding prevention in engineering. Stormwater. Don't discharge your wastewater into the drain. One thing government is coming up with is what we call the international best practice. It's a term, sustainable urban drainage system. This involves not government doing anything. It just requires that government regulates how you build your house. In the past, something was done with the fiscal planning laws, which says that a certain percentage of the land must be left green to encourage population and things like that, but it's not enough. Sustainable urban development system, SUDS, sustainable urban drainage system, SUDS. The word sustainable is understanding or is known for it to help us into the future. Sustainable urban drainage, channels, system, something that is continuous, that outlives anybody, doesn't depend on any mortal. It's a system, it's a process. So when you're thinking of going into an area, you have at the back of your mind that there is a natural water cycle that I need to maintain. You would have naturally prevented flooding. Do you understand? And what does this mean? It means that when rain is falling, I, as a home developer, as a home owner, need to provide an infrastructure that will hold 90% of the storm runoff when rain is falling. So I'm only going to allow 10% to flow out. So that temperature that flows out won't aggregate and flood anywhere. It will be natural, there will be no flooding. So that 90%, when in the village of old, so they do roof gutters, that they will pipe a channel into a pot that they use for their domestic calls. Nowadays, what do we do? A lot of us depend on borehole water, right? Quite expensive. But you can imagine us using borehole water to do gardening. Use borehole water to wash your cars. Expensive water to flush toilets. We're wasteful, unfortunately. That's the way I look at it. Rainwater is a good resource. You can recycle it to do all these dirty things. It's cheap. It's going to come every time during some time of the year. Why don't we key in? So we are trying to encourage people to be doing this. Do roof gutters. Collect all the rainwater in your compound. Store it in a tank for reuse. If you don't want to reuse, don't drink it. Use it for gardening. Use it for flushing your toilet. Use it for washing your cars or whatever. But if you want to recycle it, when rain is falling, hold it. When the rain stops, let it go out. That means we are doing what we are attenuating, we're delaying that peak flow time. What causes flood is when you have peak discharge in a short time. When it's raining, let small water go out. When the rain stops, that same volume of small water, let it continue going out over a long period. Rather than having 100% of runoff within 2 hours, you're having 100% in 12 hours. You know, that peak is very small. You have any flooding situation. So that's a sustainable urban drainage system. Equally, that sort encourages deep percolation. Yes, I'm not saying go and start ripping off your compound of your concrete. No. Just like the soakaway you have that allows for percolation into the ground. Create a tank for storm runoff. Channel your runoff into that tank. Let it stay there. It can be there for 2 days before it goes into the ground fully. At least the water you have abstracted for your borehole, you have replaced. So all these are actually green, climate-friendly solutions that government just needs to encourage people to imbibe. It doesn't require mega investments. Rather, spending billions to provide drains. We're only saying, just do roof gutter, do a tank, do a ridge in front of your gate. Don't let your water go out.
So is
onto
this
the road.
part of the strategies or master plan of Lagos State
Exactly.
to manage these?
Exactly. That's why we do what sustainable is an international practice. I say international best practice. It happens all over the world, but we're now adopting and adapting it to suit our purpose. It goes more than this. It's a lot more about, you know, recreating the green in the city, trying to create greening of a city. That's sorts. But for the first phase in Lagos, we're tackling flooding. Other phases will follow. So we're engaging the public on this. That it's a no-brainer. Like I'm explaining that you're really flowing with me now. But I would tell Lagosians that, come, just provide this, your flooding will stop. It's like magic. Once you can hold your runoff in your compound and doesn't go into the public space, flooding will disappear. Urban flooding. But for the river flooding, like I always say, you know, that one is a big problem because people have actually built in low-lying areas. Because you cannot really store water in a waterlogged area. So in some areas of Lagos, you have, by the time you dig half a meter, you're already touching water.
So you think there's no solution that can be preferred
For those areas? No, I said there are mega engineering infrastructures that will need to be provided. It cannot be so natural because if we had planned very well before the development took place, then we would have advised on the level of fill, how high, like I'll tell you for free now, to mitigate climate change effect on flooding. If you want to sand fill anywhere along the lagoon, you must fill 3.75 meters. A study had been done to that effect. Okay? So it's not enough that you are now sand filling to that height. You need to provide a channel that will handle the water that will naturally come from the river. You need to live with such. So, but going to the future, Lagos State, we are trying to do a study of such flood-prone areas and trying to understand what we need to provide to create a resiliency strategy for them in terms of what actually do we need to do. But it's not an off-the-cuff solution. It's mega engineering. We're talking about dikes.
Okay.
We're providing dikes, and these are not things you can just do without planning because diking requires area. You require a lot of things. So, but we're getting there.
Okay.
Understanding and managing rainwater runoff is essential to living harmoniously with it, rather than seeing it as an enemy. As Engineer Nurudeen Sodende highlighted, flooding is inevitable, but proper management can mitigate its adverse effects. Thank you for joining us in this insightful discussion. Remember, it is our collective responsibility to respect and manage water effectively. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more informative content. Together, we can make Lagos a better place. See you the next video. Bye.